Well, hey there. Welcome back to the Hesitant Homesteader. We're in the second week of September and we're planning on doing some preparations for wintertime. Temperatures are getting down into the 40s at night. There's a chill in the air. The garden is done. The meat birds are done. So this means we change gears into wintertime activities like cutting firewood, splitting firewood, stacking firewood, putting the garden to bed, and doing any other last-minute projects where we can close things up and kind of batten down the hatches before things get cold, before the snow flies. Sad news today. Unfortunately, I came out to check on the chickens a little while ago, and I came out to see this. This is one of my little barn velders. I had 11 of them, now I've got 10. And pretty disappointed because a hawk picked this one off, another red-tailed hawk or a chicken hawk. And I've worked really hard to enclose this pen area for that purpose. And to see one come in and to see how it got out was pretty crazy. So this area here is where that hawk came in. And it's really frustrating because I've spent a lot of time enclosing this. Personally, it's disappointing because everything that I had read online talked about putting netting up and creating an enclosure, but then there was a lot of other comments that said a hawk will avoid an area if it thinks that it can't get in and get out safely. So a lot of websites and discussion rooms and chat boards and stuff, people talked about stringing line with CDs or reflective tape, things like that. And so I actually went a step further and I got this bright construction fencing, and I have strung it up between cables. And when I first started out, I had those probably like 2 feet apart. Well, I saw the hawk in here about a week ago and he didn't kill any birds. Luckily the timing, I scared him off, and I think the roosters and stuff scared him off, or were holding him at bay at least. But I saw that he got in, and so I went out and I bought more netting. I bought the big 7-foot wide, 100-foot rolls of deer netting, and I took all of this orange construction fencing and I tightened it all up. All of it I condensed to try to have coverage. And so when you look over here, what's crazy is this is actually, if I held it up, it would almost touch. It's almost side to side. It's just a little bit of the slack in the line here and there. And it's about the width of my hand, the slack area. Over on this one, it's about the width of my hand, side to side. And there's maybe a couple areas like that down, but everything else is covered. All of the sides are covered. And so when I came out to check on the birds today, just a little bit ago, I saw the hawk already down on the ground finishing his kill. And when I startled him, he flew up, and he flew with no problem at all right through this little area as big as my hand. And that hawk is easily as big as one of these adolescent hens. So it was pretty frustrating. I was actually really shocked to see that. So I guess I've got my work cut out for me today. I'm going to take the rest of my fencing and I'm going to go over any other areas. I'm going to probably cut all of this orange construction fencing down just to keep the weight off my lines. And I'm going to have to go over the whole thing with that black deer netting. So my advice is, if you live in an area where you've got hawks, even if you haven't seen them, do a full enclosure like this. It's going to protect the birds. Okay, so I've got my deer netting. This is that 7-foot tall product, and some cable ties and my tin snips. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to cover up every little hole that I can today. And I'm going to start with the area down here that's got that orange construction fencing. And then I'll come back and finish off this area. But hopefully I got everything covered. Because after looking at this and thinking about it, I gotta tell you, that hawk is a pretty talented hunter. I think he was very patient, and he took his time, and he really assessed the setup, and he picked his spot to move in. Well, I think I'm ready to go ahead and test this new idea for our chicken pen. I put together a larger pen area for our birds to give them better access to fresh grass and more bugs. What I did down here is basically I just made a little hoop tunnel to connect the pen from their feeding shelter, and I made a little trap door here where we can open and close that. And so I'm going to set the camera up and let it run for a little bit, and we're just going to see what the birds do and watch them go into this area. One of the projects I want to get done before winter is to put a windbreak fence in front of our firewood area and this boiler. This area faces west, and we get a really strong westerly wind every winter, and it's so cold, and you come out here every morning and every night to feed the boiler. It's just nice to have that windbreak fence up here and just take the pressure off. And I also think it might help our boiler perform a little bit better as well. So nothing really big, but I'd like to just build something that's maybe 8 to 12 feet in length, just to cover the area as I go back and forth to make it more comfortable to work out here. Project number 2 is behind me. This is the shed that was left here from the previous owners, and it's 12 feet by 10 feet, and it was starting to get into a lot of disrepair. So Ben helped me out, and he came over and we put a new roof on. Old roof didn't have any tar paper. Water had gotten under the shingles, rotted through some of the sheathing, so we put new OSB in some areas, tar paper, and they also didn't have any drip edging, so we did drip edge all the way around, did it right. But as you can see here, we don't have any doors. They build these sheds pretty cheap, and this was OSB, and when that stuff gets any type of water absorbed into it, it kind of puffs up, and then the screws pop out and everything gets loose. So I'm going to rebuild these doors, and that's a big project we want to do, obviously, before the snow flies, so we can store everything in here, protect it, and I'll need to get this covered up. So that's project number 2. Project number 3 before winter sets in is getting rid of all the garden, cleaning everything out. So this was the big bed where we did our watermelons and cantaloupe and our jumbo squash, and we went through and pretty much picked everything out. I'm gonna cut down the tops of our asparagus, and we have to go through this other area here where the tomatoes were, which I messed up and I didn't get them staked. And so they're all over the ground, and so we'll clean this out, put this in the compost area. Maybe we've been feeding stuff to the chickens, so I'm sure the chickens will get some more of that. This was our peas and our pepper plants over here. So we'll get all of these beds cleaned out, and then of course all of our cherry tomatoes over here. So it was a good garden. It was a small garden, but it was just enough for us. But that's another project that we have to do, is to get this cleaned up, put everything in the compost, put the garden to bed, so we can start over next year. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned in upcoming weeks where I'll give you an update on finishing up the shed doors and building that windbreak fence over by our outdoor boiler and some other projects that are coming up as well. Leave a comment and let us know how things are going in your neck of the woods. See you next time.